Concern about this war spreading further across the region remain very real this morning. Israeli forces and Hezbollah have exchanged cross-border fire today, with Israel claiming it struck inside Lebanon in response to a mortar attack. At the same time, U.S. forces have launched further airstrikes on targets in Syria. And for details on all of this, Rebecca Collard is live with us once more in Beirut. Rebecca, I'd like to start with those U.S. strikes. They're not the first. In fact, it's the third time in a bit more than 2 weeks the U.S. has retaliated. What do we know about these strikes and why they're happening?
Well, Heather, they're happening because we've seen this really significant uptick in attacks on U.S. personnel, both in Iraq and Syria. So remember, the U.S. has around 2,500 troops in Iraq, around 900 in Syria. And U.S. officials now say over the last few weeks, there has been some 40 attacks against U.S. targets. And, we had some very strong warnings from the U.S. Secretary of Defense about what will happen if this continues, that, the U.S. is willing to use whatever means it needs to protect its troops, its personnel, and its interests. And I'll just remind you, Heather, of course, these countries, Iraq and Syria, they don't have any Israeli presence there. There is no diplomatic relations between those countries and Israel. And so because the U.S., of course, is the biggest political, military, and financial backer of Israel, many people in this region blame the U.S. for what is happening in Gaza, saying that they are allowing the Israelis and supporting the Israelis in doing that. So we've seen this real uptick in strikes. And as you said, it's this concern that this could really spread into a regional war, Heather.
And as I mentioned, Rebecca, there are new exchanges between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. And according to Hezbollah, new types of weapons being employed in that fighting as well. So what's the latest on Israel's northern border, and how is the ongoing conflict with Hezbollah shaping what is happening broadly between Israel and Hamas?
Yeah, so we've seen basically daily exchanges of fire since October 8th, Heather, across this border. But over the weekend, we saw a bit of an escalation, both in the rhetoric and actually in the military activity on that border. So, Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah's leader, He spoke this week, and he talked about this more advanced military equipment. He also issued a warning to the U.S. that, if the U.S. doesn't want a regional war and it doesn't want these attacks on its troops in the region, that they need to stop the war in Gaza. And then we heard from Israel's defense minister who sent a warning to Hezbollah saying, if this continues on Israel's northern border, the Israeli army knows how to turn Beirut, so this city I'm in now, into Gaza, that they have the capability of doing that. So along with this kind of escalating fighting, we also have this escalating rhetoric across that border. And, I'll just say we've been talking about this since October 8th, this daily exchanges of fire. And in many ways, it doesn't seem that either party there wants a full escalation. And, what we heard from Hezbollah's leader was, this front is active. It will continue to be active. And it seems that Hezbollah's goal, Heather, is to act as a distraction and a deterrent for the Israeli army to hinder their military operations in Gaza. And, we've heard from Israel also at different points that they do not want a second front, of course, in this war. But I think the concern is, of course, that when you have these almost daily exchanges of fire, it is very easy for an escalation to happen, whether or not any of these parties want it, Heather.
Rebecca, thank you as always. Rebecca Collard live with us from Beirut.